What infamous movie plot hole has an explanation that you're tired of explaining? The first rule of Fight Club, and their growing number of members, is because it is meant to teach the members to break rules. The flaw in the Death Star's construction. We didn't need Rogue One to explain it was a deliberate sabotage. So an exhaust port has a flaw. It is not unreasonable to believe that the flaw was necessitated for efficiency. Knowing that the flaw was inevitable, the trench leading up to the port was protected with gun towers. Tarkin, along with other officers, fully believed that the Death Star was superior in its construction, that small fighters would pose no threat to them. During the Rebel assault, an officer pointed out to Tarkin that the Rebel attack is exploiting this weakness and offers to prepare a transport for him. To which Tarkin responds, "Evacuate? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances." To them, the weakness is negligible, that there is no chance a Rebel fighter would be able to drop torpedoes into the port. And they were right. The first fighter to make an attempt failed. Luke was only able to succeed because he used the Force instead of the computer. Something no one anticipated, because they all believed that the Jedi were extinct. One of Charles Foster Kane's servants was outside his bedroom when Kane said, "Rosebud." The door was wide open. The dialogue later confirms that a butler heard Kane's dying words and reported it to the paper. Everyone always asks why there was a desert in Washington, D.C. in Transformers 2. It has been clearly explained in a ton of discussions of that movie that it was just a really bad movie. From Independence Day. How could a virus programmed on Earth computers destroy the computer system of an alien civilization? Quote, in a deleted scene, it's revealed that technology from the spaceship at Area 51 was harvested and used as the basis for most of Earth's post-WW2 computer technology. Once you know that, the whole thing becomes a lot more believable. Home Alone. It's very clearly explained how they paid for the trip to Paris and that Kevin's dad didn't foot the bill. For the people who spend all the Star Wars movies saying, "Why don't they just Jedi mind trick everyone into doing this or that?" Obi-Wan is very clear the first time he uses it that it works on the weak-minded. I think the way stormtroopers function throughout the first 3 films shows they aren't the sharpest tools in the shed and are probably bred, trained, selected to do whatever without question. And just be cannon fodder. Tom Cruise is not the last Samaria. Ken Watanabe is. Cruise is just the POV character. It's not a white savior movie, but instead is a white colonialist learning about the value of native cultures and people. Dark Knight Rises. How did Bruce Wayne magically get to Gotham after he escaped the hole? 1. In an adjacent scene it's mentioned the bomb will go off in a month. So we can assume that's how long he has to get back to Gotham. 2. Wayne Enterprises has offices around the world. All he needs to do is get to an office, log in, and wire himself money or supplies to get home. He's Batman. He can easily do this without being noticed. 3. Batman Begins has a whole sequence of him traveling around the world penniless and nameless. This is a specific skill it's already established he has. There are tons of plot holes in that movie, but for some reason people get hung up on the easiest one to explain. Jack and Rose couldn't both fit on the door in Titanic. In the movie, they try to both get on the door and it capsizes because the door isn't buoyant enough with both of them on it. Jack then gets off the door so Rose can get more of herself out of the water. It's in the movie. They try to do it in the movie and it doesn't work. It doesn't matter how much surface area the door had. It's the buoyancy of the door that was the problem. I've said this for a while now. I'll defend the movie Home Alone with my life. Kevin got left behind because his family was mad at him and obviously didn't like him that much. He was in his room and there was so much chaos. Also other factors such as we see his passport ticket being accidentally thrown away. And a neighbor kid snooping through the van accidentally gets counted. Why didn't Kevin call the police? The phone lines were down. We also see Kevin's mom talking to the police. But they don't care or take her seriously. Also, it is likely that Kevin didn't trust the police because the burglar disguised himself as a cop. Kevin recognized his golden tooth. The thing people bring up that has some validity is how Kevin pulled off the traps and how he had some of the stuff he used. For this it's just expected to suspend your disbelief because it's a comedy for kids. But also some things are plausible. I can fully believe that young boys in the 90s had a Michael Jordan cardboard cutout. Is there some kind of Mandela effect going on with the Titanic movie? Why doesn't Rose let Jack get on? They can both fit. Quote, Jack does try to get on. It starts to sink with both of their weight on it. Jurassic Park. Hammond C. heaping out on hiring Nedry. Note, this does get explained in the book. I'm just talking about what was presented on screen. A lot of people vilify Hammond for sparing oodles of expense on hiring Dennis Nedry and the dominoes that fell as a result. If you listen to the dialogue, though, Nedry, you know anybody who can network 8 connection machines and debug 2 million lines of code for what? I bid for this job? Quote, what? He bid. Hammond opened up the floor for contractors to bid. And Nedry was the one that set his own price. Hammond just accepted it. On paper, he was likely looking at someone that was more than competent, highly skilled, and came in with a low bid. Sounds somewhat reasonable. Did he spare expense? Sure. Does that fly in the face of his claims? Absolutely. But so did everything else. He was a flim-flam man that cut corners and rushed deadlines everywhere. And that was absolutely his undoing. But Hammond didn't set out to purposefully underpay Nedry, which was Dennis's justification to undergo corporate espionage. He just said, "You're hired," when Nedry set his own price. She's all that. So, he makes a bet that he can make a pretty girl into the hot girl when all it takes is taking off her glasses and fixing her hair and changing her out of overalls and into a red dress. Quote, no. The bet was that he could make Lainey Boggs into a prom queen over the more popular, but less likable Taylor Vaughn. Zach explicitly points out that she's scary and inaccessible, an antisocial artsy chick who shuts herself off from people and hides in her basement to paint. It isn't until he does chores for her to free up her time enough to get her to leave the house and go to the beach and join a party that she becomes well known enough to be a serious contender for prom queen. Also, Lainey still loses. As it turns out, fixing up her appearance doesn't automatically help her win a popularity contest. In Wreck-It Ralph, Felix could not fix Vanellope with his hammer. That's because he lives in a world of a video game. A lot of older video games had damaged states, values for entities. His hammer is not repairing the code or resetting it to its default state, it is simply resetting the damage value of that object back to 0. He couldn't fix Vanellope because her damage is not damage, she is an entity took it is damaged due to King Candy, Turbo intentionally sabotaging her code blocks and most importantly removing the links that connects them to the overall network. This is why she is able to exist in Sugar Rush but not leave. With her code severed the way it was and having those connections destroyed, her entity data could not be passed to other devices. It's like she was isolated from an arcade-wide sort of internet as their conscious technically exists separate from their body. Their conscious exists within a block of code. Felix can't fix that. Despite his mantra of "I can fix it," he can't. He doesn't know how to manipulate the code. His hammer just resets damage values. And that's why he couldn't fix Vanellope. Also, I think I have a potential explanation to the whole idea of why majority of characters in that universe don't really seem concerned by the whole danger of dying outside of your game, but I'll save that for another thread, as that one's more of a theory. Not a film or show, but a ton of people make fun of Meatloaf's song, "I'd Do Anything for Love. But I Won't Do That," thinking it's oxymoronic. However, the last verse of the song, sung by Lorraine Crosby, states, "I know the territory. I've been around. It'll all turn to dust and we'll all fall down. And sooner or later you'll be screwing around." To which Meatloaf responds, "I won't do that." The thing that Meatloaf will not do for love is cheat on her. It's an epic, awesome song that has been lampooned for decades due to the audience's misinterpretation of the lyrics. If they had just hung around 7 more minutes, they would get it, but they won't do that. 2 of them. 1. Steven Spielberg's AI has an ending that is widely misunderstood. Those creatures at the end are not aliens, but hyper-advanced future robots. As aliens, the ending makes even less sense. 2. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. It's a common Trekkie question about how Khan could possibly recognize Chekhov, since the character had not yet joined the cast during Khan's original episode in the first season. Easy explanation was that the character was there, but met Khan off-screen. Maybe not a plot hole per se, but Armageddon. People always parrot the statement, "Wouldn't it be easier to train astronauts to drill, rather than teach drillers to be astronauts?" The premise of the movie is ridiculous, and an awesome dumb movie emo. But the movie explains it very clearly. First of all, only part of the team are drillers. There are still astronauts actually flying the shuttles. All the drillers were trained to do was spacewalk and survive while drilling in space. Secondly, the film shows that they did try training astronauts how to drill, but they were failing at it. Bruce Willis's character had created the most advanced drill that was needed to drill the asteroid, but it was complicated to use. With the time crunch, Bruce Willis explained that there was not going to be enough time to teach them properly, and it would be easier to teach the experienced drillers how to do spacewalks. Again, the premise is ridiculous, but it is explained pretty clearly. Besides, payload specialists are a real thing NASA uses, so it's not that outlandish. How did Andy reattach the poster after he crawled into the tunnel? Quote, "He didn't. The poster was only attached at the top, as evidenced by the scene where he is seen digging into the wall under the poster, then looking out when he hears someone coughing, then ducking back under it. The poster is clearly securely attached at the top but freely moving at the bottom, thus allowing Andy to lift it, let it fall back down whenever he needed." If you watched your child grow up for years, you wouldn't suddenly say, "Hey, doesn't he look like that kid we knew for a week 30 years ago?" Especially because there were no pictures of Calvin Klein. You'd probably just see the designer and assume that was who you met.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.